Hello and welcome to Sam Not So Wise. My name is Sam and today I'm going to talk about a book I just finished called The City of Last Chances by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This book was released in December of 2022 and this was actually a reread for me. So the book club I run here in Reykjavik, an in-person book club, chose this book. And I was very happy to read it again because I remember really enjoying it, but kind of forgetting some of it because I have an awful memory. That's just what I'm like. But this is the first book of the Tyrantphilosphers series, trilogy by Adrian Tchaikovsky. And I believe the third book is coming out quite soon. December, it says in some places, but it is a bit confusing. I'm not sure when it's coming out. So if anybody actually knows when it's coming out, please let me know because I do want to read the rest of this trilogy. So let's find out what I thought of this book. Did it live up to the reread? And should you read it? So with much further ado, because once again the kids are screaming and there are people doing work outside who are going to be doing it for a long time, curse me, let's talk about this book. So what is this book about? This book is basically just about one city, the city of Ilmur, which is in Telmark, the country in this world. And it's about this city basically and its occupants. It is a vibrant city with a myriad of cultures and factions, classes and nobility. But the story is really about it being under occupation. So the whole of Telmark, the country, is under occupation as well as other countries by the people called the Palatine Sway, who are basically an empire that is quite recent but is doing extremely well for itself, taking over places and bringing them into their culture of perfection. But this is basically just focused on this city of Ilmur and its people. Now, the main reason we focus on this city is because it has something within it which is extremely unique and important to this country as a whole. As far as we know, this is the only place where this exists, and it's called the Anchorwood, which is basically a portal to other lands, and it's extremely mysterious. We don't know much about it, and the Palatine don't know much about it. It's not understood. And obviously that is something that is interesting to an empire, a place that opens up to new worlds that they can go and invade and make perfect. And the main plot of this story starts up really when a high up member of the Palatine Sway enters into this Anchorwood, this portal to another land, trying to understand it, trying to be one of the first to ever break through and, you know, make movements within this place and be able to understand it properly. And to do that, he has a very specific item which protects him from this Anchorwood, because the Anchorwood is extremely dangerous with lots of monsters and scary stuff. Only really the people that live there and survive are what are called the indwellers, who are part of this world. And to pass through, you need a specific charm to save you from these monsters and be able to go to the lands. And this high up member of the Palatine Sway has a very special one of these charms. But when entering this forest, he realizes that it is no longer on him. And therefore, of course, he gets chomped up to little pieces. So somebody has actually stolen this charm from him. And therefore, a great hunt begins to find out what has happened to this charm, who's taken it. And basically all the factions of the city hear about this and they want this very special item because it can give them safety if they were to go into the Anchorwood or would sell for a lot of money. So the Palatine want to know what happened and everybody wants to get their hand on the item. And of course, the Palatine, being emperors and taking charge of this city, they start turning the screw. They take people in for questioning. There are hangings. There are lots of nasty things going on. And this makes the people of the city extremely angry. And all of these little factions start to kind of rise up, I guess, and various sparks are lit within the city and it becomes an attempted revolution. So I don't want to spoil too much for you, so I want to say no more about the plot, but basically it is an occupier versus occupied story within this city for the very special reason of the anchor wood. And if you like that kind of stuff, you are absolutely going to love this book. One thing I have to mention about this book, which is very interesting, is the writing style. So it is made up of lots and lots of small chapters between kind of 5 to 10 pages on average, and it's in third person omniscient. At least I think it is. I'm not quite experienced enough to know fully, but it's never necessarily spoken from the person who is the point of view, I guess, within the chapter. You kind of follow character focuses, but you can start the chapter talking about a person and what they're doing and thinking, but it's actually about somebody else. And they just start the chapter and it's about how they relate to somebody who is more of a main character, I guess. So I believe it's third person omniscient, but the chapters are, again, like I said, extremely small, but they change focus so rapidly, and you don't actually get any repeat characters or focuses until I wrote this down, until page 120. So this can be kind of difficult to follow because it's not like there is a main character or a small band of main characters or anything like that. It is very much about how this city works and all of the different factions and all the different people. The city is the character that we're following, and the small parts that make it up. So yeah, it can be extremely confusing because you're not kind of getting deep and dirty with one character and knowing a lot about them. They do start to repeat later, and they repeat more as you go on and the story develops, but it is kind of difficult, and for that reason I would not necessarily recommend this for beginners. However, if you're a fan of deep world building, this book is 100% for you. The world building is fantastic, and this is just one city. It's not set in a world, but it feels so full and deeply described that it feels like a world within itself. So I guess this is an urban fantasy because it is completely city based, and it's not like your classical sword and sorcery. But you know, this city is extremely well realized and it feels really real. You can tell that Tchaikovsky really thought about how all of these separate factions work and how they might relate to each other. And you know, the factions, there are a lot of them. So again, it's not necessarily for beginners because there is a lot of learning about the various parts of the city. I mean, we have several resistance groups, you know, with different distinct flavors. We have the factory workers, we have the university, we have the Palatine themselves and all of the workings within their empire. We have the old nobility, we obviously have the anchor wood and the pub that is next to it, which is kind of acts as like a guardian to this anchor wood, or like the in-between stage. We have a place called the Reproach, which is haunted. And we have some religions within this world as well, in this city, which are very well explained. Tchaikovsky does that thing where he doesn't really hold your hand. He kind of just tells you what's happening without explaining every detail. So again, it might not necessarily be for complete beginners, but you do start to, you know, learn over time because he does repeat stuff. And it's just extremely deep, and it will take a bit of time to understand where you are and what's going on. Thankfully, there is a glossary at the front which helps you with characters and different factions within the city. So yeah, it's extremely deep world building, but also there are some very clear influences, and one that I love is the Orwellian influence. Now, 1984 is my favorite book of all time, and you can tell that Adrian Tchaikovsky loves that book because within the Palatine sway, there are like parts of the government and their system which are named in a very specific way, but they basically kind of do the opposite of what they say they're doing, very much like 1984. And I think there's also a Pratchett influence in this. So if you've read any Pratchett and understand how the gods work in that world, it is very similar here. So some of the themes should be fairly obvious, and they're about occupation and oppression within an empire, you know, people coming and taking over without being asked. Who would do that? God, I don't know. So yeah, that's obviously a big theme, and it's also about the people who are occupied, who want to fight this oppression and choosing the right time. Should it be tomorrow? Should it next week? Should it be next week? And kind of always pushing it down the road, or should we just fight? Do we need a spark, or do we need to be working all together? It's about trust. It's about whether you can trust your neighbor to fight with you, or are they gonna, you know, tell the oppressors about you to gain favor. You know, whether to save yourself or whether to work together. But also, because of the deep world building in this, there's a lot to do with othering and cross-culturalism. So this is a city, a vibrant city that has many different cultures from other countries as well as this country. And it's about how they all fit in together as well. Some really deep looks into how it is to be a foreigner in a different city. I'll briefly mention the ending. I think some people are probably going to find it dissatisfying because there are not necessarily any final answers. There are a few answers, but that's not really what this book is about. It's supposed to be fairly mysterious. So if you're looking for every single question to be answered, you're not going to get it. This book does come to like a big head. So there's a nice big raising of the temperature at the end of the book. But you're probably not going to get everything you want. So in my opinion, this is a good ending because it's not necessarily a cliffhanger, but it does hook you in, you know, kind of wanting to know how much further this goes. And I think it's kind of a lot more realistic that not everything goes amazingly swimmingly and everyone's cheering. It's very much more nuanced than that, and for that reason I really do want to read the rest of the series because I think it has a lot to offer. So in conclusion, this is quite a different fantasy book. It's not your normal sword and sorcery. This is a lot more focused in on one place. The world building is not as wide, but it's as deep as anything I've ever read. And so if you're looking for a different type of world building, this has got you covered. If you're looking for depth of world building, this has got you covered. If you're looking for a different kind of writing style, this will pique your interest. If you like dystopian type fiction, you know, things that are very much focused on the community and how they're being oppressed, anything kind of Orwellian, this is for you. If you're looking for deep and interesting themes, this has got you covered as well. But it's not for everyone. I understand that. It's definitely not for beginners. If you like extremely character-focused works, then this might not be for you. However, there are a lot of characters, but you do learn about them throughout the story, and some of the characters are extremely interesting. There's one reveal about one of the characters who's very mysterious right at the end of the book that is just absolutely fantastic. You know, when you first read it, you absolutely do not see that coming at all. At least I didn't. And it's kind of funny as well, which is cool. But the characters are not amazingly deeply explored, but they are great. So I think this is a great book. Obviously, I've just waxed lyrical about it for probably too long as usual. So I'm going to give it an execution of 8.5. I do think some bits could have been shorter, and there could have been maybe clearer explanations of the world and stuff like that. But it's amazing. It's really good. 8.5, and probably the first time ever my enjoyment is going to be higher, and I give that a 9. So averaging out at 8.75, a truly excellent book. So if you've made it this far into the video, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe and join the journey. I'm having an excellent time as always. And that's it for now. So I'll see you in another video soon. Goodbye.